It's my pleasure to introduce two very special people to Exopolitics Today. James Gilliland, he has been a contactee for over 40 years, and he has taken many photos, many videos of craft over Mount Adams. And we also have Peter Maxwell Slattery, who has a sanctuary in Victoria, the Jaya Sanctuary, where he has also been taking photos and videos of craft that he has been interacting with. And they're here to talk about the most recent news coming from their respective ranches and also Three Eye Atlas.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, welcome, James and Peter, to the show.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Yeah, so much is happening. So, do you want to begin, Peter? I haven't spoken to you for a while, so why don't you tell us what's happening down there at Jaya Sanctuary in Victoria, Australia?
It's been a lot. I've had a lot of things happening privately as well as publicly, and what I can tell you is that taking people out now for over 15 years to see what some call the phenomena, we're seeing this get extremely ramped up. And what I mean by this is that over many years, the crafts or even the orbs or when bangs are landing, it would be at a distance. With the public here at the sanctuary, with people I don't even know, once we do some Yigong and Qigong and we meditate and we rise our consciousness to interface with them, we're starting to get activity with the public around up to like 3 foot in front of me, where the orbs are appearing, the bangs are appearing. We've got some of this on camera as well. Actually, a lot of the landings and the orbs in front of us on camera. So the landings are usually materializing back at the back fence here, but that's only about 50 meters away. So why I'm saying this is that over the many years doing this myself, usually they're at a distance or they're just purely telepathically connecting or like psionically with their own psionic assets, what have you. But this is getting close. This is getting personal, and that shows that there are huge changes on the way, even from the information that I'm getting directly as well.
And what about you, James? What's going on there at Iseri? And I know you're in Hawaii at the moment, so maybe you can describe the transition for you.
You know, pretty much the same thing. They seem to follow me, which is interesting. But we're having incredible activity at the ranch. It's still going. I'm not there now. I'm in Hawaii, and we're creating an Iseri, Hawaii, in the process of doing that. And we have an upcoming conference we're going to do here, Peter and I, and a couple others maybe. We're still working on it, but the activity here is crazy. I mean, we're having the same thing. We're having masters appear. We're getting photographs of them, light beings with shields, on their arms. The ships are coming in one after another, like bright orange and yellow ships. Light ships are coming in, and they're going down into the water off of Mililihi, and the people somebody down there is signaling back to them, and they're flying right over and just hovering, and they're shooting lights up to them. I haven't found out who that is yet. I need to go down there one day, but we're just above it. And like Joe and his kids, Sage and Jaden, are here, and they're filming down there constantly. We oversee the ocean, and so they've been getting incredible footage lately, and they're responding. They're flashing us. We're circling with a laser, and they flash back. But something really big is going on, and we're getting the usual spy planes circling overhead, and black helicopters and ships parking out there. And we just had an aircraft carrier just sitting out there for a while. It was kind of interesting. I don't think they would dispatch an aircraft carrier, but it might have just been something else going on. I don't know. But they were flying right over it, back and forth, going down into the water and coming back out. So I don't know what they're doing under the water there. Maybe that's a good remote viewing session for Peter, to check out. we've been doing a lot of energy work and remote viewing and things, and we're getting the same thing. Peter and I are getting the same thing, but now there's a lot of psychic turbulence about it, and a lot of people saying, 3-1 Atlas is this and that. And I've heard everything from, it's going to destroy and cleanse the earth from it's all going to be, they're going to fix and heal everybody. I've heard the whole spectrum, and they're coming from, people say they're coming from the inner earth. People say they're coming from, Space Force. And then they're saying, oh, that's just Space Force. And then other people are saying, it's, I can't remember what the last one was. It's, a Federation ship or something like that. I've heard everything. But when we first saw it and heard about it, we tuned into it. And we have a special method we use, which has a male-female balance. And we really looked at it, and we got the exact same thing. And we saw some, it was like a frequency. There was a pulsing blue energy there, and the beings were pulsing in and out. And then we asked the beings that we work with, we said, who are these guys? And they told us their name. They said they're the Ahians, and they're a very ancient race of beings. They're 6-dimensional beings. That's why they're hard to focus on. And if you don't have the 6-dimensional consciousness, you're not going to see them. You're just going to project whatever you think they are into the situation. But they're very, very advanced. It was like a scouting ship in a way. It was gathering data. That was the main thing we got. It was scanning, gathering data, and interacting on a very high level of like consciousness and energy. That it was like most people couldn't even understand what it's doing. I don't fully understand what it's doing because, I've not been privy to that kind of technology. But they're scanning everything. And they're sending out little probes, and it's stopping, starting, increasing like 300% in speed. It's making course directions, and it did the perfect slingshot around the sun. And anything else would have been destroyed, doing it. It's got amazing shielding on it, but it seems to be like almost like an AI nano consciousness and energy tech that is beyond our realm, beyond us understanding what it is. But I know it gathered data on the entire earth, the grid, our consciousness, our energy, everything. It knows where all of our weapons are, the military, and it has all the information. Because, they may have to come and intervene. If we start going nuclear, they might have to show up and say, okay, stop it, kids, and shut things down, which they will. But there's more coming. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more coming.
Yeah, and I know you talked about the 3-eye Atlas kind of mirroring back the consciousness of the viewers, or whether we're talking remote viewers or people trying to see it psychically, or even traveling there, that they will see whatever unresolved stuff is in them. So is that what's going on?
Yeah, it's kind of like they're projecting into what's happening, and it's just reflected back to them according to their understanding. So a good example, if I'm a victim, or if I think this is evil or this is bad, I'm going to project that into the situation and say, oh, they're coming, they're going to, a bunch of reptilians, and they're going to make human pilaf out of us. That's one program. Another person will say, oh, they're all love and light, and they're masters with robes and things like that. And that's, what they're projecting into it. But what we found out when we were looking into it, they blocked us in the beginning. They didn't want us in there. And so we kind of made peace, told them our intentions, and got clear. And they started giving us glimpses of what's going on. And then basically, we just got not a lot of information, just basically they're gathering data. They're kind of, I'm trying to think of the word for it. They're kind of aloof. I said, are you coming to help the earth? And they said, well, we're going to join the councils. and help the councils, but they're kind of in charge of what's going on the earth. They like, it's like not our job to come fix everything, and they're kind of aloof, but they said they would be joining, like the Andromedan Council, the Orion Council of Light, the Palladian Council, all those councils that are helping right now. They said they would be joining them, but I don't think it's going to be a hands-on thing with them. They're like 6-dimensional beings and doing their own thing. I know Peter got some information too.
Yeah, Peter, please.
Yeah, the funny thing was too, before it was even alluded to, I actually told you, James, there's another 3 ships. And then all of a sudden we hear about 3 comets. This is months ago that I said this. But I didn't look too much into any of this because I've got a lot going on that I can't talk about that is assisting more from behind the scenes on the mainstream public level with some of these things that we're talking about in terms of disclosure. I did, though, with the remote viewing workshop that I taught here at Jaya Sanctuary, I think it's a couple of months ago, as soon as this was brought to my attention, Atlas, I targeted it for remote viewing. Why I use this with the practice is because I've worked with thousands of people over the years now, and I can tell you that when people start out remote viewing and they're innocent and they've got no idea what they're doing, but they go through the protocol, they are extremely accurate the first few times until they dip. And so the funny thing was that everyone actually had that as something they wanted to target me with. And I was ahead of the game on that one, but I also targeted it when it first came to light. And this is extremely important, how things are put as a target. In this case, I didn't have a monitor in between me being the person targeting, in this case, Atlas, and then you hand it to a monitor, and then that monitor is the in-between, so they don't even know what's going on. But there's other protocols and measures in the way that I targeted this to get the information. And the information came back that it is some type of ship, some type of machine vehicle. And it was also referenced at this time with what 2 of the viewers got, that these beings had eyes like prawns. So I found that interesting because that was a common thing. There wasn't too much more. We didn't get at that time anything positive, negative. It was sort of a neutral scenario. But the data came back that it is something. And as I spoke about before we started this show, the concern that I have is when you see these big fads happening, usually there's a spin that's done by the cabal to try and discredit whatever it is that's happening and control the narrative, as James well knows, and yourself over the years. That's where you really want to play the game, is where you can through the media, which the conditions are changing. Many years ago, television was the way. Now podcasts are the media. Then people aren't just taking it in now. What's happening on mainstream television, the views are down. So because of that, I sort of sat back because we've got a lot of noise that James was talking about. The noise is it's this, it's that, blah, 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 whatever. I don't think anyone's got it 100%, but what we do know is that there's a signal, and the signal that I'd like to bring to this conversation with this is how is what we're doing with our day-to-day life and as ambassadors and representatives, how's it helping people help themselves be better, be of service and bring love and joy into their life? Because if we rose to the occasion, as James, being my best friend and mentor for many years, talks about, we've got a scenario where we can bypass a lot of the trials and tribulations that humanity faces purely through doing the very simplistic thing that most cultures and ancient cultures talk about, which is love is the key to all of this. And I say this with love because we're in a scenario that these beings aren't going to save us. And the potential humans have, we don't even understand it yet fully from the ascension abilities. But we're also going through the process of unraveling this and being in a stage of earning them, because once you tap into these abilities, there's great responsibility with it, to where we will also be ambassadors of Earth and also interacting with other extraterrestrial civilizations, which isn't far off, I believe. But it's going to take a bit of transitioning due to the fact that there is what I've talked about with you before, Michael and James, of the United Galactic Council, which was an offshoot created that's ran by humans with extraterrestrial assistance because of the corruption that's also happening in third dimensional space-time with other extraterrestrial civilizations. And as James told me years ago, which is where I have to sort of back myself off a bit, is I'm sort of an intermediate mediator between extraterrestrials and the transdimensional intelligences that surpass extraterrestrials. And because of that, there's a different perspective I've got on this. It doesn't mean I'm more enlightened or no more, but also John Vivanco and his team of 40 remote viewers also got the data that I'm connected to a lot of intelligences, because part of the process of this physical vessel as the soul's experiencing this reality is to be connected with source at all times, which is something that I even have to train myself into trying to work out the manual of what I'm experiencing. So it's a very convoluted situation that's going on, and it's not to take away from other contactees and experiences. I guess I'm just trying to outline the word discernment here, because these other organizations and groups that people don't tend to think about have psionic assets and remote influences, beings and humans that are very advanced with psychic capabilities that can make people get false information psychically and with remote viewing. And also we've got the egregore scenario that if enough people believe a lie, it can start to manifest in conscious reality of what we're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to those people? And there seems to be, I noticed, with R.V. Loeb and others associated with him, they're pushing this idea that this is a threat, that they kind of always frame it in terms of, the dark forest hypothesis, that the universe is inherently aggressive and dangerous, and that any ships from another solar system arriving here will be on guard because they assume it's a dangerous environment. And so we need to treat this as a threat, as a planetary threat. Well, what do you say to those kinds of views?
James?
You want me to go? Yeah. Basically, we have a saying: the mind in which you seek is the mind in which you connect. And so a lot of people are projecting their beliefs and patterns into what they're experiencing. And like even Baba G said, they said man adds fear to God's message, And so we're all projecting things into this, but I like to get back to base logic. If you have this master race of beings, a very technologically advanced civilization like that, they'd have to be spiritually advanced as well, or they would have done themselves in a long time ago. And there, as you go up the vibrational continuum, there are beings that are very advanced. Their technology would be like magic, and they're kind of guardians and overseers and things like that. And if you had a group that came in with that kind of technology and intent, negative intent, the other ones would step up to the plate and say, not here. And we do have people overseeing all the time. We have these councils and other people. If we didn't have these people overseeing, we would have been taken over a long time ago. And there has been influences here on the earth, and a lot of people know who they are. They're unseen negative influences. You can call them serpent beings, reptilians, royal reptilians, grays, negative grays. There's a whole host of them, demonic type energies that have been trying to take over for quite some time. It's always been there. We've always had this light dark scenario going on. The force, the light side of the force and the dark side of the force. Basically, that's been going on here forever. But what happened is the dark side was getting too much headway and stunting the evolution of Earth. So now the light force has to come in and clean house. And that's what they're doing right now. They've been clearing out all the underground dumbs and the negative reptilian bases and a lot of that. They're getting rid of that. And they're even cleaning up the astral levels and things that are, lower fourth dimension stuff that's been affecting us. And there's a lot of people on Earth that have been trained to do that. In the self-mastery classes and ambassador training, we teach people how to do that. that are also helping clean up the planet, and teach people how to shield and heal and see negative influences. But it's going on a huge scale. And the one thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't want to sound like a Bible thumper, but they found all of these. It was in Ethiopia. The 80 books of the Bible, we only use 66 of them. I don't know why it's like 2 6s in there, but we only use 66 of them. There's over 80. And the real teachings of Jesus, the real teachings of Mary that talk about her being an initiate and she's not a hooker or whore or all this other crap they're trying to do. And how Paul took over his teachings along with the Romans and shut Mary out. She was, Jesus said, out of all my disciples, she's the most qualified to continue in my teachings. So all of this is coming out now. And this whole external God with go-betweens is crashing. And people are starting to make their own personal connection with God, which is what all the masters taught. And when you read these other ancient books, they say in the last days, God will pour out his love or his consciousness and energy. It's not really a he or a she, it's beyond that. But in the last days, and it's going to put an end to tyranny. Tyranny is going to implode on itself, and the dark forces are going to, they're not going to be frequency specific to the earth anymore or humanity. And that's what we're moving into right now. But it doesn't mean there won't be chaos, and it doesn't mean there won't be, a lot of choices made that are not in people's highest and best good, but they're going to be removed very quickly because the action-reaction principle or karma is being amplified and accelerated. That's what this energy does. But the main thing is what's pouring.
Oops, okay, we lost James.
Just cut out.
Okay, I'll add him back to the screen. There we go.
Yeah, they didn't like that. They don't like
funny buggers.
But basically what's happening is universal law is being programmed right now into the consciousness and energy of Earth. And you can see in the Schumann resonance, there's all these little dots all throughout it, and they don't know what that is or where it came from. And it pulsed. It was a huge pulse, and a lot of people are attributing it to 3-1 Atlas and other events. But there's all this sprinkled consciousness and energy, these little red dots everywhere, and they still don't know what they are. And I believe, and this is kind of a guess on my part, but I really think with that higher consciousness and energy comes universal law. And we got a huge infusion of that. And everything that doesn't align with universal law, which was basically universal peace, brother, sisterly love, individual freedom and prosperity for all, like unity consciousness, is just being turned upside down right now. And that's the chaos that we're going through before we enter into the golden age. And these comets are the blue Kachinas and the red Kachinas and everything the Native Americans talked about. And, they're saying that the whole tyranny program, the service to self program, all that stuff is collapsing in on itself. And those people who built their kingdoms on ill-gotten gain, that's collapsing. Mm-hmm. And the energy is going to be returned back to the people, and especially those who choose to align with universal law and become part of this ascension process.
Anything you want to add to that, Peter?
Yeah, there is a few things that dovetail onto that. So what I'll say here is that from the information I've got, and take it for what it's worth, that, for example, with the Vatican telescope, Lucifer in the United States, part of the information I've got is that what they're looking for is the New Jerusalem, as mentioned in the Bible. Yeah. Now, because of that, I will also say that there are negative, what we can say is negative extraterrestrials, but let's say they're not that negative compared to demonic intelligences.
Yeah.
They don't need a craft. All right. So these beings can traverse space and time throughout the cosmos in the blink of an eye, as well as the angelic intelligences, which there are millions of them, positive and negative. And you could go through the statistics in the Bible with that if somebody wanted to look up the millions. I believe it's, a certain amount of number. I'm not going to reference it at the moment. I forget. I did look at it quite some time ago, but there is a lot of angelic intelligences, and then we do have demonic influences. These demonic influences, at the hierarchy of it, is the fallen Elohim. The positive Elohim are the intelligences I work with, but the negative ones that fell also created the artificial intelligence that goes from world to world. And as worlds develop technologically to a certain point, it's now an interface point for demonic influences to come through the devices and interface with the physical world. And why I'm bringing this up is because at this time, through devices, through entertainment, what have you, even through psychic abilities, for our thoughts, our ideas, our epiphanies, our concepts, I ask people to come back again. So how is that information helping them? Because the threat that we're seeing or we're hearing being spoken about up to 27 is a controlled narrative situation again, that what they do is they seed it through government people or people that are ex-military, and it's not that they're lying. This is the information and intel they're being fed, and in part they're creating an egregore scenario again. It's not real, but enough people believe it. You manifest that into the conscious state. And so I've got a lot of people that are ex or in government that I'm speaking to, and they wouldn't be coming to me if they knew what was going on. I don't know 100% what's going on. I do have regular meetings with the Elohim Council as well as other intelligences, because they're at these meetings, whether they're using orb interfacing technology or whether I'm bilocated physically or non-physically. But there is this scenario, as James and I spoke about also before the show started, we've had the demonic attacks, and it's because of the work that we're doing partly. But that's also what drives, I can't speak for James, but I believe it, as well as for myself, I can say it. That's what is driving me more than anything, teaching self-mastery and clearing negative influences, because if we can be in a clear state, we can make clear choices and decisions, not just individually, but also as a collective. And we can create an egregore ourselves, which is heaven on earth, if enough of us go beyond the victim state and go into a state of victory, which is what Jaya means. It means victory, self-mastery, and a balance of masculine and feminine. And other worlds have gone through this scenario as well. Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Kuan Yin, the House of Mary, they've helped here, but they're also assisting other worlds with their own goddess energies or the beings that I've just mentioned as well. And it's not to go down a religious route, but what you've got is a situation where there's a divide game that goes on. And as James says, Mother Mary, she's a universal being. She's not owned by the Vatican. And all these beings are available, but I'd say to first and foremost call upon God Source Creator through prayer and intention on a regular basis, and allow it to deliver who can assist with the most beneficial information and intel to help you empower yourself, which is usually what the angelics and masters are doing. So there's a bit of a different spin, but we are in a situation that James and I have had full-on attacks, that I've been choked, I've been scratched, I've seen doors ripped off hinges, and James has seen just as wild stuff over the 40 years as well. And anybody that says that these influences can't affect the physical world or us physically, they do not know what they're talking about.
Okay, well, one of the things that a lot of people are thinking about is what is going to happen when Three Eye Atlas starts approaching the Earth. Like the closest point of approach is December 19, when Three Eye Atlas will be, it'll be like about 160 million miles away. So it'll be pretty far away, but yet that's the closest point of approach. Now, some are saying that Three Eye Atlas is going to reveal itself to be a spacecraft. So do you see that kind of scenario happen? I mean, because it seems to me that would be a great way to break the disclosure kind of secrecy system that's in place.
Want me to take that?
Yeah.
Yeah, here's the thing about 3-1 Atlas and anything external, any external savior that we think is going to come and show up and fix us. they're going to help us fix ourselves. I love that thing. The first law of miracles is you got to do everything on your part possible, and then you get the help on high. And so we've got to really clean our act up and create, an environment that they can work in, like Jaya Sanctuary or ESETI. We've created a space, a very high frequency space, and kept that space clear so we can interact with these beings. And that's what we need to do. I mean, a lot of these other institutions we look to are not frequency specific for contact with higher dimensional beings, because they have ulterior motives and different agendas, and they want to get the technology and whatever. They have all these different reasons, and very, very few have the moral and impeccable integrity to engage these higher dimensional beings, the spiritually and technologically advanced ones. So the thing is, they are here. They are going to help. It's definitely a ship. There's more ships coming. There's whole fleets coming. But what are they going to do if they can't engage us? If there's no place for them to land or connect with us, there's no outlet for them to be safe, and secure, where they can help us. They can give us counter-gravity, free energy, med beds, all of that technology they have, replicators. Where are they going to land and engage us? And as long as we have the tyrants in charge, so we're in the middle of the fall of the tyrants and creating that space. They are sending a lot of consciousness and energy and helping us to raise our frequencies and guiding us through dreams and telepathy and things like that, helping us to evolve and reach higher. But I mean, there's a major education process that needs to, we need to be taught about universal law and get rid of all the religious divisions and government divisions and all these other divisions that have been created down here, and start operating from a one planet, one people perspective. And I'm not saying socialism or communism, and I'm not saying go there, because we all know where that turns out, historically. But we need to find, we can't do it through the UN. It's not going to happen there. We know what that's about, or NATO, or things like that. I don't know if did we lose Michael?
I think we have at the moment. It's still recording.
Yeah, I guess we lost Michael. I guess I'll keep going. But it's again, we've got to create a sacred space, and people need to get behind these spaces. And I know Peter, myself, man, we're living on a shoestring, keeping the doors open. And while all this multi-million dollars, probably, ufology is $1 billion business, and all that money is going to a controlled narrative. And it's sad, but until people figure that out and start getting behind the people that are really into service to others, that are really working hard, that have made contact already, that have the connections, that have the I'm trying to think of the moral and integrity and levels, it takes. And I'm not saying you have to be a saint. You just have to be a good person. You just have to be doing the best you can, basically. And we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to make choices, and we're going to gain wisdom from those choices. But basically, it's it's up to us. Basically, I'm just saying, the biggest joke they played on us is external saviors.
Well, that's what we've talked about a lot in the past. For example, we've spoken to people that are connected to the medbed scenario and the financial reset. And I've talked about it before, where there was one trip to the United States. I happened to meet 3 women, and all 3 women, their husband had committed suicide because the expectation of a certain date and time that the financial reset was going to happen. And there's great responsibility with people like us in this community with what we say and what we do, because people are taking everything as gospel in some cases. And because of that, there's great responsibility either way, whether they do or not, great responsibility with what we say. And in some cases, it can ruin lives with people putting information out that's either misinformation knowingly or unknowingly. And it also comes back to the external savior scenario like you're talking about as well, is that people put their life and everything in somebody's choice or decision that is going to save them. And in a lot of cases, it's got no way that it can assist them. And for some people, it's their last hope. They're down and out. So just like you've known how many years, James, about people talk about the med beds now like it's something new. You and I were talking to people about med beds privately about a decade ago, but I knew that you were going way back to that technology and the financial reset. These things are real as well. I want to say this to people. Yeah. These things have an opportunity to happen. These devices are real. James has seen stuff. I've seen stuff. But we've got a situation that the people that have got access to this at this time wanted to control the narrative of how it comes out, and it's all got to do with money again, which is why I told some people where to go. Connected to this, and this is going back a decade. This is nothing new, that a lot of people are newcomers to this going, oh, you know, they're going to bring this out and that out. But James, you've been well aware of this, probably how long I've been alive.
Yeah, you know, I knew about this stuff in the 70s, basically. I hate to admit it, but and also too, you know, your check's in the mail, your funding's in the mail, it's going to happen Tuesday. We have a big joke. People go, yeah, it's going to happen this week. I go, don't tell me Tuesday. And sure enough, Tuesday, And I tell people, there is going to be a total reset and a change and everything else. But we've got to make sure who's behind it, and make sure it is, geared towards helping the masses and the people and not, just a few. And I tell people too, a lot of this reevaluation stuff, I told them a long time ago, this isn't going to happen. And they said, why? And I said, because there's a lot of people that should be in jail that are going to benefit in trillions of dollars when this happens. And until they're gone and that funding is secured, what are these demonic people going to do with trillions of dollars? Imagine what's going to happen. And
that was the key part of it, was that you had people that have a lot, billions, possibly over $1 trillion or more, and because part of their families haven't got any of their major cut yet, they're trying to perpetuate what the families are doing, and in effect perpetuate an Luciferian agenda, and it's ruining it for the human race, where once you get to a certain stage where you do have replicators, you've got med beds, you've got technology at your hands that can just make life so simplistic in the areas that once it wasn't, so we can go down new endeavors and new achievements for ourselves individually and the human race. Huge changes can be brought about, but there's people that don't want that, and part of that comes back to the non-human aspect of negative entities that are orchestrating that agenda through human vessels with people unaware in most cases.
I think Michael's calling me on my phone. I might run check that quick. Yeah, he said the internet just got knocked out where he is. Yeah, I knew they'd probably knock one of us off here. God, the interference is beyond imagination right now.
You've been getting all the I've been getting similar stuff as well as the hacking. You've been getting the helicopters even in Hawaii as well, and the flight.
Yeah. Helicopters and these high-tech spy planes. I know people in the Air Force, and I showed him the video of it, and he goes, "Oh, that's super high-tech spy plane," And they go, "What do you have going on there?" And I said, "UFOs," and he said, "That makes sense."
Yeah, we had the C-130s here that we had the crafts go by. I actually sent that. Michael's got that video as well, but we've had the I'm not sure what they are. I'd say they are some type of surveillance plane. They're smaller than normal, but it's got such a tight turn on it. And these things one night were circling the house for about an hour and a half, and they weren't on the flight tracker either. But I couldn't, because it was nighttime. I got some good footage of it, but I couldn't get really good details about what the actual plane looked like or anything like that. But we actually had that, I think, 2 or 3 nights in a row for anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. So they're definitely they're definitely been watching out for what's going on with the beings when we're connecting, we're being visited, and monitoring all that type of stuff for sure.
Yeah. Hello.
Hey, James, it's Michael.
Yeah.
My internet's knocked out. My hotspot's not working. My internet is out, and we've got really high here. So,
Where are you? Where are you located?
Key West.
Oh, you're in Key West. Okay.
Yeah, there's 25 miles per hour all around us. So I guess they must have knocked over something. They use cellular location internet, but yeah. So we don't have any internet.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't know when it's coming back. So we may just have to reschedule.
All right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on online there.
Yeah, we kept going. We just kept talking, hoping you'd come back on, and it's being recorded. So
Okay. Well, yeah, just I mean, I can't be there.
Yeah, no, we'll wrap it up.
You can
If it's
look at
saved, it's saved.
It's pretty weird. I don't know how to do that.
No, it's all right. If these things happen, mate, it's fine.
Yeah, we can reschedule. Michael said, what about tomorrow at the same time?
Yeah, we can do that.
And we'll just continue from where we got cut off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That's good.
Yeah, that'll work.
Great.
All right. Well, I'll see you tomorrow then.
Okay.
Cool. Talk
Bye.
then.
Okay.
Cheers, mate.
Well, I'm back. Yesterday, when we did our recording of this, my internet went out for 5 hours because of some strong winds. It happened just as we were talking, so that is very telling right there. I mean, I have my suspicions as to whether or not someone didn't want us to talk, and you guys were really raising excellent points. I'm glad you kept the discussion going when I was kind of knocked out for the last 10 minutes, but I'm back. So let's resume, and maybe you can just say, I mean, has this been happening to you where things just go all right, as though you're being messed with, we're being watched by a matrix?
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, there's been things over the years that I've alluded to in the books and in other interviews. I won't say the exact companies, but I've told you. The most recent thing was actually a year ago, though. There is some stuff happening right now where I contacted the internet and telephone provider, and they got me to get onto they got into my system. They got me to a specialist in the United States in New York, which was a bit odd to start off with because it's an Australian company. And basically this gentleman said that when he got into the modem, there was 30 devices that even if I logged on to the internet into the modem, I wouldn't even see this. And I think it was 30-something devices anyway. It was 30-something. And I basically said to him, would this have to do with some form of surveillance? And he said, the way he responded was, yeah, I can't really say. But he was alluding to, yeah, but it just, I guess, the way that he works and the way that the internet companies work with situations like this, they can't really say much. But also many years ago, when I got back from Colorado, every time I would open up the laptop, everyone else's internet would stop working where I was living at the time. And we also contacted the internet provider back then. And long story short, I actually plugged the computer into the modem because I wanted to discount Wi-Fi connection, which didn't make sense. And a red box appeared with another white box with a heap of letters and numbers in it. And he said, can you give me those numbers and letters? Long story short, he did something what I think is a worm where they can track back through the modem what's going on. And it went to 4 places and ended up at a certain laboratory in the United States that everything was being uploaded. And at that time, because the internet is a bit behind, we're catching up now, meaning in internet quality and speed in Australia. At that time, we were around 10 to 12 megabytes a second. There was 5 of us living in this home. And the guy said that if our internet wasn't so bad, I wouldn't even know about it. But because of all my videos of UFOs, the beings, the photos, a majority of it's in 4K. Basically what's happening is everything was constantly being uploaded when the device was open. And I spoke to a internet security specialist that this guy has apparently one of the biggest companies on the planet that does internet security even for government. And he said, as well as another gentleman, that there had to have been something physically put onto my device for that to be done because they couldn't even do it. And I believe that one of them was a hacker in the past that was given opportunities by the government because they were so good, that for this gentleman to say that he couldn't even do this shows that there was some advanced tech involved.
Yeah, I've had pretty much the same thing. I always have two computers, and one would get just destroyed, and then I'd take it in and they'd clean it up, and then I'd put the other one on, and I just kept switching them back and forth. But the last one that it was a nice Mac, and it got destroyed, and these things aren't cheap, it's like, and the guy checked it out and he said, you have almost every agency in every country in your computer. And I don't want to get the VPNs in trouble, but I had a major VPN on there, and I had all the bells and whistles, and they just went through it like butter, so it comes with the territory, and the way I feel about it, I hope they were listening, because they probably got a real education, and are learning what's really going on, and learning maybe there's a spiritual aspect to this, but at least I wish they'd just quit destroying my computers. That's getting a little expensive.
Well, I know with both of you, you take a lot of photos, a lot of videos of craft in the area where you live. The ranch and the sanctuary. Yep, we just lost James. There we go. Okay, let's bring him back. So both of you, you're back. Thanks.
Speak of the devil.
Yes. So both of you have a lot of evidence, a lot of photo and video evidence, and I think that's what comes to the agency's attention. That you're not only spreading stories, but you also have all this physical evidence. So I just wanted to maybe go over some of that, and this was recorded at over there in SETI by, I guess, both of you were there. So you want to tell us about this particular incident? I've turned the sound off. You want me to turn the sound on? Let me know.
No, that's all right, because you'll hear yelling and carrying on. Am I all right to talk, James?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just give a brief overview. This was from a workshop that James and I held at his sanctuary in Washington State back in July, the 4th of July weekend. It was Contact to Ascension, and we're actually doing another one in Hawaii in this coming February. These are some of the ships that were coming down low. Some of these were actually beings in their light body, and others were actual vehicles. But this is just a snapshot, basically, of if you did have the volume up, but you'll hear yelling and carrying on. And me, I actually was getting over COVID at the time. You could hear everyone yelling. So these are up around on James's pages as well. But it was quite an exciting time, because when you go through the processes of doing meditations, clearing the space and creating a sacred space, which James has done extremely well there over the years. There you can see the ship powering up right now. And then going into a process where James actually brings in the beings through a technique that he's actually taught me to do. When you're doing that with such a huge group over a number of days and you're getting that cohesive energy, these ships were getting down at treetop level. And you also get phenomena happening in real time, like extremely close, like we do here as well. So this was quite an exciting event. And just to show what's still happening at ESETI Ranch in Washington State, 40 plus years on, over the many years James has been doing this.
Yeah, anything you want to say, James? I mean, this was happening at ESETI?
It is interesting, because we've had NASA out there. We've had triple PhD Boeing engineers and Lockheed engineers and Air Force base commanders and airport, traffic, what do you call those guys?
Air traffic control?
Traffic controllers, yeah. Yeah, we had those out there. We've had all these people out here, and they've all testified. And they were saying, these are definitely ships, but they're not ours. They said this is way outside of our, we have our own Space Force and things like that. But, these ships will actually land, they'll morph into 3 or 4 ships and then go back into one again. And then just all kinds of crazy stuff. But we have so much footage. They're coming in every size, shape, and color. we have giant triangular ships. We have, disc shapes and massive light spheres and everything. We have, the arsenal is just way too much. It's way too much. It's way outside the box, for NASA or even our own Space Force.
How did you find it, Michael, years ago when you visited, Michael? Because you've been to James's ranch many years ago as well. So how did you find it when you were visiting there and when you've called through James's ranch? Because you would have, you've experienced it firsthand as well there.
Yeah, that's right. I was there in 2006 with my wife, Angelica, and it was probably the most profound experiences I've had. One of the most. I mean, being on Mount Shasta, seeing something there was very profound as well. But you could, it wasn't just the ships, it was the energy of the land. It was like you were in a higher vibrational field, and it was like, you could see things, you could see orbs, people having contact experiences, you could communicate more easily. So I think it's just, both of you have obviously picked spots that there is a kind of energy vortex on that land, and you just are able to do things and see things that you can't normally do. It's like swimming with the dolphins. You're in this energy vortex.
Yeah.
Amazing things happen. So that's the same at your ranches.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things about it's kind of interesting because it's actually documented on government maps that East Seti is in what they call a purple zone. And it means that there's high magnetic anomalies there, and it's even on government maps. So we're right smack in the middle of this purple zone. So the veils are really thin between worlds, and everything is happening there. We're seeing nature spirits. Bigfoot comes walking through all the time. We've got ships coming down. Ascended masters are appearing there. Peter got some great photographs of Kuan Yin and I think it was he and a few others.
And Kathy as well. A lot of Khan, Master Khan as well. We do the energy works, and then whether in real time at that time when we're doing that or later on, the beings are fully materializing in that space. But I will just add here too, John Vivanco was the one that showed that map. So it's a US government map of anomalous energies, and literally it only goes around Mount Adams and comes out only to East Seti Ranch, and it's peaked off the chart. You can't get any high magnetic anomaly energies. So, and you've had everyone from Dolores Cannon to Billy Carson to Robert Dean to Michael. You've had so many people over the 40 years come out there that it's sort of almost like a who's who's been out there to come through and at least experience the place.
Yeah, there's been so many. Robert Dean came out and we had a campfire talk, and he told me all the inside stuff going on there. He said, "Get me a glass of whiskey and a cigar, and I'll tell you anything." And he did. He told us everything. So all the way down to cosmic top secret stuff, and how we've been involved with ET for God knows how long. The government knows all about it, but a lot. It's amazing how many. Anybody who has been out there, but there are some that will not come out, and those are the shills, the nuts and boltsers, and those who are trying to suppress anything spiritual. They don't want anything out there about these possibly being our ancient ancestors and very spiritually and technologically advanced. They don't want that information.
Yeah, I know that. The mainstream ufologists make a big deal of Chris Bledsoe, who's a contactee, and he's had some really profound experiences, and he's got photos and videos. So that's good. Except what I found was that a lot of his experiences have been enigmatic or fearful. The experiences you have. At least I know at SETI, and I'm sure it's the same at Jaya Sanctuary, are very uplifting, very positive, but it's interesting that those people will put a lot of emphasis on the Chris Bledsoe and his contacts, and trying to pretend as though this is real contact, but in fact it's there's a fear element there that makes it something that is very questionable in my view. What do you think?
Well, what I've seen, and I don't know, Peter, I don't know what Peter's take on it, but what I've seen is that there's an old saying, man adds fear to God's message. And also too is that, we are seeing things through our own filters and our own beliefs. And there's real religious connotation there that, and it's not seeing the big picture. It's a box, it's a limited hangout. And so with both Peter and I, we've had like NDEs, we've gone to the source and back and everything. So we're coming at it from a much higher level, and we've transcended all the social engineering, the religious programming, everything else, and looking at this from a much more expanded state. So it's a different perspective. They always say you have to look at things through the Buddha mind, the fresh mind, or all you're going to see is your own projections. And that's what's happening a lot in the UFO community, is that people are seeing their own projections. They're projecting into it their beliefs versus seeing it as it is, as its real nature. And that happens a lot. But I know that there are negative ETs. There is training on how to clear unseen negative influences and how to heal them and create sacred space. And we do that. We train people in that. And there are, just as the benevolent ones are much more vast, much more powerful. And I always say, if you want to get rid of the negative ETs, bring in the positive ones, bring in the higher dimensional beings, bring in Yeshua, or Jesus or Mary or Kuan Yin or Babaji or some other master. They clean house, they'll clear it out. But, I had a counseling with a guy, and I can't say too much because it was a private counseling, but he had 3 reptilians attached to him. And he came and we sat down, we're doing the counseling. And I called in Babaji, one of the masters I work with, and I saw these reptilians go all the way down to the ground. They bowed and they wouldn't look up. And then they tried to kind of trick me to engaging them, or they said, we have a message you need to hear, and trying to hook you through fear and things like that. And I said, you have nothing. You have nothing for me. I want nothing from you. And I said, go. And they backed up and left, So they, you got to set a boundary, and they do respect and honor, especially Christ consciousness on up, the higher dimensional beings. And if you're a victim and you're always in fear and things like that, you're an open door for this stuff. So you got to stand in your own divinity, and there is help you can call in to move these things out of your space.
What about you, Peter? I mean, any kind of comment about that?
Yeah, I agree with James. I will say with Bledsoe, but I don't know him. I know people that know him personally and well. And it does seem a bit of a broad range. He does have a perspective on the negative as well as the positive. Now, maybe from that perspective of the Christian perspective. But as you're aware, I can't say too much because I was asked not to, but I did show you evidence when we first connected, and James has seen this, that the people that studied him wanted to study me as well, and I declined that for a number of reasons. But when you're going into this, there are many people that are wanting to use what people like us can do for weaponry. Mm-hmm. And when you get to a certain level of consciousness, you wouldn't do harm with what can be done psionically. And I'm only saying psionically because it's the new fad word that's actually an old word and everyone's using now, and it's a more of a military term. But I think when it comes down to it, that there is a controlled narrative, just like with Atlas that I spoke about earlier, that with people like us and these types of events, the faceless and nameless characters behind the scenes of the cabal that are actually going back to non-human intelligence doing stuff that you and I wouldn't do to start off with because they're not friggin' human to start off with.
Yeah.
They will control and put a spin through their mainstream connections, which is the big television companies and the entertainment and what have you, because that's where you can manipulate through the devices. So Yeah, I just wanted to add that, and that's no saying anything about Chris whatsoever. I do know people that know him extremely well. He's a real experiencer, but I think if people don't know his story over the many years, going from the extremely negative and fearful to what's going on now, they don't know. And I don't know purposely, as I've told so many people that said you need to read his material because he's talking about the guardians like you, which I think they could be the same beings, but I think there's variations. And as well that James spoke about, a lot of my connections, I'm connecting with extraterrestrial intelligences and multidimensional ultra-terrestrial, extraterrestrial intelligences as well, but also angelic and in between. And so it's a situation where purposely I try not to look at information unless I really have to, and I'm guided by the higher beings to not mess with my filter and lens of my own information. This is why it's extremely funny with James and I, because we do have people that will go for a counselling session to James and then get a reading off me. Me and James don't talk about any of this. Like, we hang out as friends, we know when the beings are coming in and all that. But so many times people go, you just said the same being with the same name that James said. And that's what I find is cool confirmation, because we don't talk about what happens with our readings or things privately, that you get these bits of confirmation. But I try to not, basically what I'm saying is cross-contaminate my own information, because I know that working with thousands of people, this is quite a regular thing, that all of a sudden somebody's story now becomes their story. And it's because there's so much is going on in their consciousness. And a lot of times, just because they've woken, and everything's paranormal or extraterrestrial, where I think it's best to let the mind settle from the experiences. It took about 10 years from my initial hardcore experiences till that settlement happened. So it can take a number of years.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a good explanation. That in the case of Chris Bledsoe, I mean, the early phase of his contacts were kind of like pretty fearful, and I read the book, and definitely he carried a lot of projections. He and his son carried a lot of projections, and they perceived things in this negative way. But more recently, it's become very positive, and you have all of these researchers that have kind of come in and kind of focused on him as the poster boy for contact, but yet it's like, well, how come they're not approaching you guys and giving you the airtime, doing the big interviews and, getting you in the big documentaries, like, James, I mean, have you been approached by these people? I mean, has Diana Pasolka come to you and said, I want to interview you? And
No, it's kind of funny. The people who are authentic, that are really connected and deliver, and have the evidence, are actually pushed out of the whole thing. And a good example, Peter and John Vivanco were at the ranch, and Ancient Aliens came out. And I spent an hour and a half with them, and I told them who was on the ships, what their goals are, their intentions, their ancient history on the earth, what their outer appearances were. I gave them everything, all the information. And in that episode where they came out to East City Ranch, all you see is my hand picking up a camera.
Nope.
And then he gets cut off.
He gets cut off right in the middle of making a point.
Yeah.
We got cut off right then.
I don't know where it cut off on, but
you were saying about the ancient aliens just kind of like focusing on your hand.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, as I said earlier, I think, I gave them all the information, who they are, what they look like, their agendas, their appearances, their ancient history on Earth, everything. And all you see is my hand grabbing a camera. They totally cut me out completely of the episode. And then also John, Peter, and myself told them exactly when and where the ships would appear. And we all got the information differently. At different times, and we all came up with the same information.
And we didn't tell each other either until after the Skywatch. We didn't cross-contaminate.
Yeah, and I told them when, we all told them, be ready, have your cameras ready. Well, of course, they were so busy, doing their own thing that they missed everything. And they didn't get any of it on the ship. But what they did get is that the remote viewers were all getting the exact same information I was giving earlier, and they did validate that. And then they had a couple huge light objects came over, and one we confirmed was a satellite. It was man-made. And then when they remote viewed it, all they saw was technology, and they didn't see anything else. But the next ship that came over was not, on the books. And they remote viewed that, and they said the beings in it are angelic. They said they're wearing like white. They're beautiful, pure love, and everything else. So a lot of this on every level has been verified. They even did reverse speech on me and tried to see if I was lying or not. And I said the same thing forward as I did backwards, which was they said they've never seen that before. Like there's no switching around or it's just coming straight, from the subconscious or the soul. But it's just amazing. I didn't understand it at first. I was really naive when I came into the UFO, thing, agenda there, and I was at the International UFO Congress, and I was told, do not speak about the spiritual side of things and this and that. And of course, that's what I spoke about. And, because that's mainly where I'm coming from. And the audience, I saw everybody was crying in the front row, the women and everything. There was so much energy coming in. It was powerful. And I couldn't even.
Oh, there we go.
Interesting.
Yeah. I couldn't. I got cut off again. They don't want this out there. So I couldn't even hold the energy. I was choking up myself and talking about these beings and why they're here and how much they love us. And it's amazing. So I'd get, knocked out of there, and then they'd ask me to come 5 years later, and then I'd come again, and then I'd get censored again. And to the point of you can't even get a lot of my videos. It's like I was never there. They're not even available anymore. So it's, I was kind of naive when I went in there. I go, we've got everything. We've got the witnesses, top witnesses, scientists, and we have the videos. We've got the photographs. We've got hundreds of witnesses at the time. We have everything they need to prove that it's real. I mean, this is going on for 40 years, and I was kind of naive, and I said, I've got everything they want. They're going to love this. And I had no idea how much competition, how much backstabbing, how many shields are involved in this thing. And it was a reptilian F fest. I swear it was like, okay. I just said, I'm done. I'm going to do my own thing. And so I built my own center. I got my own radio shows going and things like that. So I just got tired of the censorship, and all the other attacks and the nonsense. And I said, I'm just going to keep going and do my own thing.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Peter, about this particular video you sent me of the Air Force.
Yeah. So this actually got down to 500 feet. It came straight from Richmond Air Force Base in Sydney, flew once around Cowra, and then came straight to my property and did a figure of 8. And there was actually an ex-military person there that first there's a ship. Now, that was originally a flying saucer right above the classroom here at the sanctuary that shot up after the C-130 flashed all of its lights. So there's a flight tracker there. And that bloke was actually ex-military that actually was quick thinking. He first picked up that it was it was military craft, and then it said it was actually a Hercules C-130. And when I get it here, you can see it right above me. You can hear all of us laughing and people thinking it's just funny because it's like I'm the way I'm carrying on. And then as it comes over this last time, we actually capture a blue orb now passing the plane right there. And anybody that comes here, I'm using like a $5,000-$6,000 camera setup with the satellite tracker on top, or I'm using the Psionics night vision as well. So when people are actually here, and like I stated here, there's a tracker used in real time with all these events at Jaya Sanctuary. People can be standing right behind me and see for themselves what's going on. So that's just an example. I do have a lot of videos up online of Chinooks that are black with no markings on them, camo helicopters circling the property. I've got it from different sources that is around 2.5 to 3 hours north, east or southwest, which are the closest places that have these, like Puckapunjal's one of them, and then Wagga is the other area where these types of things would even be. So what I found interesting, I've got a friend that was ex-Special Forces that got that tracking data up on another device, and the next day it cuts out a few minutes after leaving my property. It won't show where it went. But yet the night before, I asked the gentleman that brought it up that was ex-military if he could track where it went, and it went straight back to Richmond Air Force Base in Sydney. So it's flown out, Michael, Australia, you go from Sydney to near Albury and you go back up. That's a big bloody trip on a Friday night for no reason, and they're not landing. So, something's going on. But I do want to add to what James said. I've been in 3 countries and told the time, the direction, location to be for these sightings to occur for television, and not once have they showed that. And there's only been 2 or 3 times in over a decade that I've been even invited to anything in Australia.
Yeah.
And I've done more around the entire globe than I probably ever will in Australia. And I've got to give a big shout out to Ross Coulthart, that actually, as a proper investigator like yourself, took the time to actually come and see me, to talk to me, to see it for himself, to look at the data. And he's come to his own conclusion, which there is a video that you saw recently, or I sent it to you anyway, that he says that where and when the crafts appeared, the orbs, getting to a couple of 100 feet away, he saw this firsthand, as well as now I'm over about 300, or well, actually it'd be about 500 in the places that I've lived. People have come and have seen this, but around the world there's thousands of people that have seen this. Over 15 years I've been taking people out. Most people still don't know who I am, and that's okay, because I think once you understand who James and I are, you're meant to sort of be at that stage to understand a different perspective on all of this, because it's a lot broader. But I just wanted to add that because I appreciate you taking the time, because so many people are armchair investigators, and even though we haven't met in person, you've taken the time to look at stuff, to actually talk to me, where most investigators won't do that. And that's why I do have governments and agencies coming to me, because they know what's going on to an extent, or they're trying to understand. They wouldn't be coming to me if they actually knew what was going on. I don't know what's going on 100%, but at least people are taking the time to come and talk to me, rather than put people like James and I down without any form of investigation whatsoever.
Yeah, well, personally, from what I've seen with the material you've sent, and what I've experienced with James, and James has come out to Hawaii a couple of times.
Yeah,
we've done events with James. I would love to do something with you, definitely at some point. But it's very clear that you guys are connected with something very positive, very uplifting energies that transform people. People watching this video, after they've watched it, they're going to feel a positive energy boost, and maybe their dreams will be very positive, meeting benevolent beings. I think actually the last time I did an interview with you, James, that very night I actually had a dream where I met these giants. Like these 15-foot giants, like 12 of them just came out, and I'm like, wow! And that was after I had that experience with you, and I've experienced that with other people, and but both of you guys both have a vibe that uplifts people, and I think it's because you're connected to very positive energies.
I was thinking. Oh, go ahead. Well,
I was just going to say, no, go on, James. You're right.
I was just thinking, imagine, if we set up a Zoom call with Congress, what would happen? Just say, okay, you guys, here's the big picture. No more limited hangout. No more third string. Let's bring out the authentic information, who they are, why they're here, their ancient history, everything you need to know, and I doubt if that would ever happen. But anyway, they wouldn't have to have all these hearings and say, is it a ship? Is it, we don't know. We shoot missiles at them and nothing happens. But it's like, you wouldn't have all those ambiguous statements. You'd have the information, the knowledge, and the evidence right at your hand. It would be over. But I really feel that it's done. I mean, I was told by, after November, the whole controlled narrative, the whole censorship, everything is done. It's just crashed. And as I said earlier, I think there was like 800 and I don't know, almost 900 interactions with Brazil. They just released all their files. China is releasing their files. Russia's released a bunch of their files. And it's all out there if you search it. And what I'm saying now, I know there's a lot of AI and CGI, but globally, there are fleets of ships showing up and massive ships of every size, shape, and color, over major cities, and it's, I don't know how they're going to cover it. They can't. I don't know how they're going to cover this up anymore. When they have a general come on and try to say, well, we don't know if this is real or not. You watch them and they're just like sweating bullets. And they have this narrative they have to stick to, and you can tell they don't want to be up there. They don't want to continue in the lie, and and there are some people, was it David Grush and some others? And there's another guy, he has a beard, he has dark hair, and he was talking about how this is a spiritual experience. He said, you've got to be in the right frame of mind to understand. And he was, I think he was part of the congressional hearing, and those guys are the ones that you really need to listen to, because they are open to the possibility of these being very advanced, very spiritually and technologically advanced beings. And we have to go to the next level.
Yeah.
Now, there's supposedly a group of people that are running some of these programs called the Collins Elite. That's something that Luis Elizondo talked about. Nick Redfern talked about it in a book he wrote about a decade ago. And this is a group of people that say that that are Christians. They're kind of like fundamentalist Christians, I guess, because what they say is that the UFO phenomenon is fundamentally evil. It involves demons. They're doing all this abduction, and that they pretend to be extraterrestrial, but they're not really, that they are demonic. So apparently these people are part of the secrecy system, and they're very high-level officials. So, what do you say to people like that?
What I'll say, because there's so much I can't say at the moment, because I've got people connected to everyone you're mentioning that have come to me, and just people prefer that they don't have in the public that they're talking to me, which is so frustrating for me.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will say, as I've said to people sort of like that, and it's funny, Collins, because you got Collins Street in Melbourne, and once you go through the streets in Melbourne, you realise there's a whole cabal grid set up, ciphering energy. And I won't go too off the reservation, because
Yeah, I'm saying that.
I can if people want me to. But as I've said to them, if there's angels, if there's demons, there's angels. And people have looked at me and gone, so Peter's there extraterrestrials. And when I look them in the eye and I go, yeah, there's those as well, they don't know what to do with it, because the main lot of information going throughout those circles is that this is demonic. All right, so why they're physical crafts? Yes, some of these greys are actually robotics. They're biological drones that we could say, yes, demons and AI use to interface into the physical world, and they're using the vehicles basically so they can interface with this reality. But I'm also interfacing with greys that are completely neutral, and ones that are actually light beings that took on that form to wean me into interfacing with them, which are the guardians. I've had demonic experiences. I've had the most amazing angelic experiences, even here with people, where you end up on your knees in tears because of not just the manifestation of them, but the energy and the love. And there's also extraterrestrials that emanate that, maybe not at that level, but they are very enlightening to be around. So the situation is what they're trying to pump into the governments in the background is there is a demonic force and there's an angelic force. And if they do certain things, they're going to bring, in their opinion, the next coming of Christ through the actions that they're doing, which is very convoluted because some of the things that they're doing are extremely dark, that they're orchestrating. And it's not even the governments per se, it's the people that are not elected that are within certain things that are pulling the strings in that way. And so that's been basically my response is, hey, if there's demons, there's angels. And they don't know what to say to me after I say that because it's quite clear cut.
Yeah, there's a vibrational continuum is the best way to understand it. And there are low frequency beings that are very controlling, manipulating, self-serving. And there are beings that are totally in service to others that are very loving, very caring, very just beautiful, very high consciousness beings. So it's all the above, is going on. And to navigate this, we need, ambassador training classes and self-mastery classes so we can discern who's who, learn how to heal unseen negative influences, create sacred space, and navigate this. And so you can see the big picture. And so, as I said before, people's realities are limited to their.
There we go.
There he goes again.
Mid-sentence.
He's still there, is he? Or you can see.
He was there a moment ago. Okay, well, I haven't got him back yet. Well, that's interesting. So James is talking, he's in mid-sentence, and he's being repeatedly cut off. That's very interesting. Maybe he's activating the link again to come in. So, maybe while we're waiting for him to come back, Peter, maybe you can just kind of like tell us about how the kind of like the government tracks you. I mean, obviously you have this, you have military helicopters coming over your property. I mean, I think that they're somehow tracking the energy, and when they detect a certain energy flow, here we go. Yeah, you're back.
Oh, yeah. They don't want this out, obviously, but it goes back to the mind in which you seek is the mind in which you connect. And if you've been socially engineered or religiously engineered and everything else, you're not seeing things as they are. You're seeing your own projections, basically. And so we're taking a very high level view of this whole thing. And unfortunately, a lot of them haven't just raised their frequencies enough to experience these other levels. And I'm not saying I'm higher than others or lower. I'm not saying anything. I'm just stating a reality that we have to rise to the occasion if we are going to interact with these very spiritually and technologically advanced beings. And we might have to release some of our belief system. There's always a lie in belief. And I always tell people that. Do you have firsthand experience? Do you know? And I'm amazed at all of these so-called experts with their PhDs. They've never seen a ship. And how does their PhD factor into this when they've been taught that these don't exist? They're not real. And so where does their authority come from? I'm trying to understand this. It's like, how these guys have the pulpit and are on the top of the stage and everybody's waiting, for their view on things, which is a very limited view. And so we're just trying to bring a more unlimited view, a higher understanding into this whole situation, and then help humanity take a quantum leap in evolution. That's what this is all about. And the people that don't want this evolution to happen, the tyrants and the controllers, they're the ones that are putting out all this other nonsense, basically.
Yeah, I was just kind of like while you were out, while you were taken out, I was just in the middle of asking Peter a question, so I'll just kind of restate it.
Okay.
You can both answer it, which is that it seems that the governments, the militaries, have a means of tracking these technologies, and when you establish a connection, whether it's negative ETs or positive ETs, they know and they're there and they interfere. So yeah, you want to kind of like maybe speak to that, how they have developed this technology to track the appearance of angels or high frequency beings, and they come in and interfere.
It goes back to technology that, from what I'm told, has been derived from extraterrestrial technology to an extent, though we've got to give ourselves credit, because in the cosmos out there, we're quite well known for some of the tech that we've developed ourselves as well. So humans are getting a bit of a rap out there for what we can do as well. In a recent video, actually, I do talk about this, that even since the 80s, there's the original sort of super soldier groups and other people that I've spoken to that have even seen me at facilities, that I'm not part of any of that. I've talked before that I have been taken to underground facilities, mainly for torture or using psionic technology with psionics assets to try and derive what I know. That's been what they've tried to do. And basically what I've been told is it's useless doing that to me. I don't know why, but for some reason it hasn't worked. But including that, there is soul recognition technology, the way it's been explained, that going back to the 80s, they've had certain tech that they can see basically on a broader electromagnetic spectrum, the light that we emanate. A lot of these intelligences see us as light, and through that light, there's information. That's why even when we see orbs, not just physical ships, but orbs, we can receive information and download. So there's a way that through the light, because everything's consciousness and awareness going into a vibratorial state, which is sound. Sound creates light, light creates matter. This technology seems to understand the blueprint of how reality operates in that sequence, and into being interchangeable, which you can derive information. Just like in some cases, there might be consciousness-assisted technology to interface with people, and that's what some of the ETs are using to interface with us if they're not at a certain level. Again, there's no hierarchy that I'm trying to put here. But what I've been told in recent years was originally it was harassment. These days, it's more monitoring, and they're aware, in some cases even when I'm not, of machines, vehicles, orbs being around. And so how they do that in a timely fashion, obviously they've got some type of tech that they're aware. But the other thing is as well, is only one time has any of the helicopters or planes been on a flight tracker. And when recently one of them was on the flight tracker, there was actually two helicopters, camo helicopters, and the other one wasn't on the flight tracker. But every other time, and what I'm told is that when they're doing that, they're on a mission. Not only that, they're unmarked, so there is no numbers or letters on them. And what we have is a situation here that, in that case, I could track that plane back, which is actually the only plane, along with one helicopter, ever being on the tracker in 15 years. Or I've got about 50 videos, probably even more at James's, that I've filmed where we do not know where the helicopters are coming from, where they're going. And that shows to me that even the armed forces don't have oversight, even though they know it's Australian, it's American, what have you. They can't tell where it's going, where it's coming from, where it's stored, which to the people I'm speaking to is frustrating for them. Now, coincidentally, I was recently shown something from Skinwalker Ranch. It was actually on one of their TV shows where there was I believe it was a black helicopter, if I remember correctly. And when Brendan Frugal had to go and speak, because he's still updating the Pentagon on the happenings there, he or them talked about this black helicopter that, yes, it's American. Yes, it's used like it's the military. But they couldn't even tell, because it was unmarked, where it came from. So who's got those assets that have got no oversight, that should only be in military control? And it's showing the military, depending on what arm, who the hell's got our tech, where's it going, where's it coming from? Because that, if you track that, you're tracking what we're talking about, which is the front arm of the cabal doing these types of things.
Yeah,
and how you find that? I think it's got to do with the way that it was set up with Eisenhower. For example, I'm only using an example here, and I'll shut up, but think about Area 51, right? You go into Area 51, let's say there's three big hangars, and one of them are rented out to Lockheed Skunk Works, and it's outsourced. From what I'm told, that's got no government oversight. So on their own property, you've got reverse engineered tech and tech being created by humans that even our own military, whether US or here, we can't even go into those warehouses on our own land that have been given certain tasks and money to do this for us. And they're also doing major developments in areas that people can't even fathom. And what they do is they hold that to the next contract for the next vehicle, the next stealth, the next whatever. And that's why what Eisenhower said is important, because that's how this is being done. And because the cabal is a worldwide thing, you could say globalist, but it's actually behind that. That's how they're getting away with it. There's no oversight. So the congressman, the Senate, the parliament, wherever you are, they've got no way to access this except to hear it through people like us and whistleblowers.
Yeah, we've had black helicopters come over the ranch and we're filming them, and then we see escorts, like there'd be 3 ships above them tracking them. And we have a lot of that footage. And I've had them land just like a foot off the ground. I could see a mole on the pilot's face. That's how close they were.
And your pine trees go like that from the black.
Yeah.
He's got like F-16, 17s.
Yeah.
I've never seen them. No markings, and they're that low. The pine trees are going like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's scary. It really is.
And they've lost some craft here. I mean, they've tried to vector in or attack UFOs, and the jet would just disappear. It'd vanish. And I asked them what happened, where'd that jet go? And they said he's going to have trouble landing, because he's in another time where there's no airports, so we're going to dig up a plane like an F-17 or something one of these days with or 16 or 15 or whatever, probably next to a dinosaur or something. I don't know. But we've seen a couple instances where the benevolent beings have engaged with some reptilian craft and a gray craft. And when they do, you just see a big blue flash and all you see is powder. Like they break the molecular bond of everything. And there's just like a crystalline powder left. There's nothing left. But, and they've only done that when they had like a negative intent or intent to create harm. They've intervened, but they usually don't intervene. But, in these cases, they do. So we have it all on film. Peter said we have treetop level helicopters flying around, filming the ranch, going around in circles.
Even just me and James by ourselves in the orchard. I've got my phone and just a Chinook stationary for about 30 seconds, just sitting right above us. Yeah. Nowhere else, just above us.
And so we're definitely on the radar. And they do have a pop the weasel game, where they see somebody that's really lighting up and expanding, and they go boom, they hit you with a magnetic pulse or something. And they do have games like that they play where they're trying to, I think Mary Rodwell, yeah, she calls it the tall poppy thing, like the poppy gets above the crowd, they cut you, and try to knock you down again. So they do have some pretty extreme technologies, but you can get protection. You can shield yourself, from these things. And, a good example, I had a bunch of researchers there, and I said, they're just hammering my bedroom right now. And I think it's coming from a satellite. I'm not sure. And they go, yeah, you're full of it. They go, you're paranoid and stuff like that. And I said, really? I said, walk into my bedroom. And they did. They walked in my bedroom and they went down to their knees and got all dizzy and disoriented and everything. And I said, and they go, why do you have all this foil on your ceiling? And I said, that's exactly why, But I have this double layer.
Happened in my room there as well with you and Vivanco and his wife at the time. And that's because we've got scalar shields. That tech is real, and they're using variation of psionic tech as well as satellite technologies, scalar technologies, even photon technology, which isn't known much about, but I could go a bit into that. But I'll just tell a quick story, not to cut you off, but this is my own testimony. So in my room at the ranch, John and his partner at the time fell over. They go, get James and don't tell him. James walks in and falls over. And they're like, you're being hit with satellites. And I'm laughing going, I don't know about this because I can't feel Jack. James goes down and does his technique, and Bacall comes in and says there's 13 spy satellites taking their turn on Pete, and he's going to take them out. Now, there's stuff where me and James laugh at each other like brothers going, I don't know, because it's so far out. You know that they're right, but you don't want to go there because it's off the wall. And I can tell you thing after thing with me and James. This even happened with Shiji's ship and other things. But anyway, I go downstairs the next day. Now, this was around lunchtime the day before, mid-afternoon. It was on mainstream news at 3 o'clock that morning. 13 US spy satellites were taken out.
Yeah.
James said this hours beforehand, and after that, even with the craziest stuff that we can go on about, even I was like, I don't know what to do with this. And the whole ranch, everyone at the ranch it almost looked like somebody had died, and they didn't know how to tell me. And first thing that happened as well was James got the crew to go and get foil, and my room looked like a spacecraft because the whole room was foiled. So to help try and block it. So these things are out there, and I didn't want to take it far, but I did want to share that because it's an example of what I've seen with James and even other witnesses like John to this. And apparently I've got immune to it over the years because there's been that much attack on me, but for some reason I can deal with it, like with when I've been taken to these bases where there have been joint Australian, US, as well as reptilian and greys. The tech that they've used to try and derive information, which gets newer and newer, they've got to the point from what I'm aware of that they've stopped because nothing seems to work where it would work on other people. And so there's people like us in the community sometimes are having experiences that aren't real, meaning they're being projected through technology and they're trying to mislead people as well as trying to hinder their health and off them. There's 100, so many different things that this could go down, but this stuff is real as far out as it seems to be sci-fi to people.
Well, I do want to bring this to a close. Overall, we've been getting close to an hour 3/4. So I just wanted to kind of give you the opportunity to recommend to my audience what they can do, because a lot of people have been contacting me about sort of the things that you've been describing, that they're under attack, they're feeling these malevolent forces targeting them. So what can people do now to prepare for what's coming over the next 6 months to a year?
Go ahead, Peter.
What I would say to start off with is you are the point for people. Because you're aware of these things, you may not know everything like myself. I've got no idea to a huge extent what's going on. But my point with this is that when all this goes to the next level, we've had Obama talk about UFOs, we've had Trump talk about UFOs, it's being talked about in Congress. This has already happened, the disclosure. It's just they're waning into a high level of contact. But you are all going to be the people that your friends and family are going to come to. So you've got to be able to hold yourself, because the thing that I can tell you, because people that know me know I'm the guy that I get called to some of the most haunted locations. So not only am I dealing with extraterrestrial and angelic intelligences of a positive nature, I've been dealing with residual intelligent hauntings, trickster intelligences, demonic forces. And I can tell you now, a very simplistic technique is breathing in and out of the heart for a minute or two, and then using through visualization or intention of expanding your heart space until you're in a ball, an orb of light. Now, this comprises your Merkaba, your flower of life. All templates that you can talk about are in the orb of light, which is a very simple technique that I use when I'm getting in a car, when I'm talking now. It's a form of shielding. A lot of people are waking up from dark dreams to paralysis, which in that case, that is a dark attack. You can also have paralysis coming back to the body or coming from an extraterrestrial vehicle being put back, as well as your team may freeze you so you don't freak out if you turned around. So there's good and bad with the paralysis, but even with a dark dream and then you wake up to paralysis, if you connect with the heart, observe and be aware that you can't move, that there is paralysis, and then connect with the heart and love and push your energy out, they can't resonate with this. So very simplistically and quickly, when you're in an argument or something bad's going on, your heart feels distorted and people really feel it. What they're feeling is a chaos frequency. Just like when you're in love with somebody and you're with them, it's harmonic. It's totally the opposite. So these energies resonate at a chaotic frequency that when you wake up and you freak out, you're in paralysis, that's their frequency. They siphon that. So my number one thing to people, besides prayer to first and foremost God, source, creator, yes, call upon Yeshua or Archangel Michael or different saints, sages and masters, but I'd say first and foremostly connect with God, connect to the love of God that's inside each and every single one of us, that spark that's who we are, our essence. And when you connect with that, that is non-resonant with them, and there's a detachment that happens. And the more that you can play with this in the morning, lunch and dinner, even just doing a prayer or a clearing, the more that you are going to become a threat to them, which means they back off and it will be more of a once in a blue moon type thing. But these technologies are also working on a light level. So even if you connect with the heart, push this energy out into an orb, it can make inert the technologies even working on you, because you're working now with your orb of light, passes any technology, but you're also creating it as a tulpa. Everything's created through consciousness, and it's already there. You're just tapping into it, and now you're consciously and coherently working with it.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Basically, I always tell people we have the ability to channel, love, the ultimate power of the universe, down through the crown and through the heart into every situation. And I don't care who they are, the biggest, baddest reptilian, they hate the divine feminine. They just cave to it because women by nature can channel more love. They're more sensitive into the situation, and that's the ultimate thing to do. And there's a lot of other techniques as well, but I've seen over and over again is that you can't get into fear. You have to, like, I was thrown out of my bed last week. Something grabbed me and threw me right out of my bed. I was laughing, like, hey, nice try, and I brought in the higher beings and cleared it out, and it was done. And it never, it never really harmed me. It just tried to pull a stunt, and got caught. But don't drop into fear, because that's when they got you. Yeah. And it lowers your frequency, and laughter and love and things like that. They hate that. And so if you can try to maintain that higher consciousness and energy in everything, and I laugh at everything, no matter, I laugh at things that I should be running from, but I go, what's the use? What's the use of getting into fear? It paralyzes you. You get tight, it has no purposeful good. But anyway, that's the thing, is we have to make our own personal God connection. That's the bottom line. And there's a lot of beings that'll help you along the way. But they don't want to create a dependency. They want you to walk among them, with them. And the biggest thing we need to realize is when the UFOs do come, they don't want to be worshipped, and they don't want to be feared. Those two things drive them away. And, I've had beings appear in the field that most people would run from, and they're beautiful beings, very, very ancient, very enlightened beings. And then I've had other beings that people probably should run from, but I called the other higher energies in, and they just vanished. They disappeared. So we have the abilities, we have everything we need. We have all the tools within us. We just need to get busy, and
there's a heap on James's website as well as mine. So there's clearing techniques on both of our websites. I've got a heap of meditation techniques, even working with the Merkaba, the rainbow body, the armor of light, cutting cords. So go to either eseti.org or giasanctuary.com, and there's a whole heap of stuff that people can see and drive that information and work with it in their own way. I say get what we're doing, mix it up, change it, swap it around, make it yours. But what James and I can provide is a template. Or use it as is. There's nothing wrong with that, using it as is.
Yeah, we have all the books on there too. We have books and DVDs and everything on our websites that explain all this. And so it's there, it's like, but people need to do their thing. They need to set the intention and do their part. We're not here to babysit everybody. We're going to give you the tools and techniques so you can do it yourself and empower people.
Okay, and just again, your websites, eseti.org and Jaya, Peter?
Yeah, giasanctuary.com, yeah.
Okay, joysanctuary.com. Well, I want to thank you both. I mean, you are both masters of wisdom, definitely, and I hope people visit your websites and take advantage of whatever courses you got on there, and get in touch with you. And look forward to talking to you again in another few months.
All right. Be sure to send this show to Congress.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. Aloha.
Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.